I was almost asleep when the doorbell rang. Not a polite ding-dong. 3 hard presses, like whoever stood on my porch had already decided their emergency was my responsibility.
9:47 p.m.
I'd been sitting in Margaret's old recliner, the blue one, worn on the armrest where her hand used to rest. She'd been gone almost 4 years, but some evenings I still sat there because the house felt less empty that way. I pushed myself up, knees popping. When I opened the door, my son stood under the porch light with 2 suitcases at his feet. Beside him, his wife, cream coat, leather tote, calm as a bank manager. "Dad," my son said, "we're moving in." Behind them, their SUV sat in my driveway, hatch open, more bags stacked inside. "For how long?" I asked. "Just for a little while." Lease situation got messy. His wife stepped forward before he could say more. "It'll be easier if we just get settled tonight." She said it like I'd invited them. I looked at my son, really looked. I waited for him to say anything that sounded like he remembered this was still my house. He looked down and picked up a suitcase instead. That hurt more than the words. Still, he was my boy, 35 years old, but in my mind, still the kid who fell asleep in the back seat after Little League games. So I stepped aside. They rolled those suitcases across the rug Margaret had picked out at a flea market in Noblesville, and straight into my hallway. I'd barely closed the door when my daughter-in-law pulled a laminated sheet from her tote and handed it to me with both hands. "House rules," she said. "Ooh, just so everyone knows expectations. Breakfast ready by 6 a.m., bathrooms cleaned every night. Shirts pressed, dresses hung, not folded." "This is for my house?" I asked. "For all of us," she smiled. I looked past her at Margaret's recipe box by the stove, the fridge covered in old family photos. Then I looked back at the laminated sheet and smiled too. "Well," I said, "that's organized." That first night I gave them the guest room, fresh sheets, carried a suitcase down the hall myself. "Thanks, Dad," my son said quietly, once his wife had gone back to the car. "You okay?" I asked. "Yeah, just a rough month." I wanted to ask what kind of rough month ended with his wife handing me a chore list in my own living room, but he looked tired and ashamed, and I was tired too. "Get some sleep," I told him. By the next morning, my coffee mugs had moved cabinets. By lunch, the thermostat had climbed 4 degrees. By dinner, the Wi-Fi password had been reset without asking me. On the second day, I came back from Kroger and found Margaret's recliner halfway across the living room, my son's hand on the back of it, his wife pointing toward the garage. "We're just opening the space," she said. "This chair is a little dated." "That was your mother's chair," I said to my son. For half a second I saw the boy who'd cried into my shirt at Margaret's funeral. Then his wife said, "We're not throwing it away, just storing it." He looked at me, then away. They moved it into the garage under a tarp. That night the laminated rules appeared on my refrigerator, stuck right over a photo of Margaret holding our son on his first Christmas. I moved the picture aside so I could still see her face. At exactly 6 the next morning, I got up loud. Vacuum cleaner from 1988 sounded like a lawnmower full of gravel. Washing machine, coffee grinder, Willie Nelson on the kitchen radio. The guest room door flew open. My daughter-in-law stood there, hair wild, eyes narrow. "What are you doing?" "Morning," I said. "It's 6. Neither of them had an answer for that. I smiled, not because it was funny, but because if I hadn't, I might have said something I couldn't take back. That evening, rinsing my coffee cup, I heard her voice down the hall. Low, but clear enough. "This place needs to stop feeling like your dad's house." My son said something I couldn't catch. Then her again. "No, I'm serious. If we're going to stay, things have to change." I turned off the faucet. For the first time, I understood. They hadn't come to stay with me. They'd come to take over. Losing a home doesn't happen all at once. Nobody plants a flag in your carpet. They move one mug, one chair, one photograph, and if you don't object fast enough, they take your silence as permission. My son started parking in my spot, no asking. Just, I figured it'd be easier. You don't go out much at night. His wife moved my cereal because the pantry needed flow, replaced my bath mat because it looked tired, buried Margaret's chair deeper behind plastic bins like burying it would stop it mattering. One Saturday I came in from the hedges to find a white sectional where the recliner used to sit, delivery tags still hanging off it. Doesn't this open everything up? She asked, taking pictures for who knows what. Where'd it come from? Wayfair. Good sale. You're buying furniture for a place you're only staying a little while? She laughed. It's still useful, Dennis. We can take it with us later. She always called me Dennis, never Dad. Like I was a coworker she was managing without offending. I found Margaret's chair in the garage that afternoon. One wooden leg showing under the tarp, coffee stains still on the cushion from a laugh she'd never gotten to finish. I sat on a paint bucket beside it until the light changed. That's where Harold found me, my neighbor, 22 years next door, retired Hamilton County Sheriff's deputy, a man with a gray mustache and a way of noticing things you didn't want noticed. That didn't move itself, he said. No. They settling in okay? They're settling in, I said, and he understood the question under the question. People don't take a house all at once, he told me. They make you feel like a guest first. A few days later, at a dinner party I hadn't been told about until 4 that afternoon, a stranger in my kitchen asked me, "Hey, are you the handyman?" The room went still. My son had 3 seconds to say, "That's my dad. That's his house." He stared at the floor instead. "That's Dennis," his wife said, smiling. "Not father-in-law, not Daniel's dad, just Dennis." "No harm," I said, but there was harm. It just didn't make noise. 3 nights later, up past 11, I heard voices under their door. I wasn't trying to listen. At least that's what I told myself. "We can't keep pretending this is temporary," she said. "I know," my son answered. "We need him to sign before he changes his mind." My hand went tight on the hallway rail. "I don't want to put Dad somewhere." A pause. "Not a nursing home. Don't make it ugly. Just somewhere smaller. He doesn't need all this space." All this space. The house Margaret and I paid off 1 overtime shift at a time. The house where our son took his first steps. Where I held my wife's hand through her last winter. At 6:15 the next morning, I sat with my coffee, staring at that laminated sheet, and picked up my phone. Not from fear. From finally making a decision I'd been avoiding. Bennett and Lowe estate planning. I asked for Elaine Porter, the attorney who'd handled things after Margaret passed. "Is everything all right?" she asked. "No," I said. "But I'm done pretending it is." "Is this about the trust we set up after Margaret?" "Yes. I think it's time." I drove to her office with a grocery bag on the passenger seat. The laminated rules, phone photos, screenshots of texts my son had accidentally sent to the family group before deleting them. A delivery receipt for that sectional, addressed to my house. One old photo of Margaret in her blue recliner, coffee in hand. Elaine looked through everything without interrupting. "You're fortunate," she finally said. 4 years ago you set up an irrevocable trust instead of waiting. The house already belongs to the trust. You have absolute lifetime occupancy. No one can force a sale. No one can pressure you into signing it away. But we can strengthen the language around coercion and unauthorized occupancy. Will this hurt Daniel forever? She didn't answer right away. No, but refusing to set boundaries might. At a red light on the way home, I realized I wasn't angry anymore, just tired. Tired of walking through my own kitchen, asking silent permission. At home, another delivery truck. Boxes labeled Home Office Collection. "Could you sign for these?" his wife asked. "The den?" "Our den," she laughed. I signed. Not because I approved, because I wanted the receipt. That evening Harold came by with 2 root beers. He'd quit alcohol after retiring. "How bad?" he asked. I told him everything. The furniture, the measurements, the talk of moving me somewhere smaller. He was quiet a long moment. 32 years answering family disputes, he finally said. The ones that ended worst weren't about money, they were about respect. He nodded at my house. They stopped respecting you before they ever started wanting it. Over the following weeks, I got easier on the outside. Make breakfast, sure. Pick up shirts, no problem. Wait for the cable guy, happy to. The more agreeable I became, the more careless they got. Voices stopped lowering on phone calls. Boxes kept arriving. Paint samples showed up on the dining table. Then blueprints. The wall between the den and living room. "If we stay long-term," she started, then caught herself too late. Every few days I met with Elaine. 15 minutes, sometimes an hour. She never wanted a scene. "Stay calm," she'd say. "Let the facts do the work." So I gathered facts, texts, receipts, pictures. Do you have photos of the house before they moved in? She asked once. About 20 years worth, I told her, and smiled for the first time in days. One rainy April evening, I pulled the tarp off Margaret's chair again and sat with the flashlight beam catching dust in the air. If you were here, I whispered, you'd know what to do. She didn't answer, but I remembered what she used to tell our son when kids at school pushed him around. Being kind doesn't mean letting people walk through you. Maybe I hadn't been protecting him all this time. Maybe I'd only been protecting myself from having to confront him. There's a difference. That Saturday, his wife came into the kitchen with a notebook. Good news. I booked the 4th of July barbecue. My family, your family, neighbors, everybody. Then, flipping a page, oh, and I told everyone the lawyer might stop by. Once the house is officially in our names, we can really start renovating. Silence. My son froze mid-pour. She mistook the silence for agreement. I'll tell everyone to expect good news. I folded my newspaper and smiled. I think that's an excellent idea. The 4th arrived hot enough to shimmer over the driveway. By 9, she had a clipboard going, directing hot dogs and burgers like she'd built the kitchen herself. Could you wipe these tables down before everyone gets here, Dennis? Sure. Harold, pretending to trim hedges along the property line, caught my eye. You all right? I will be. That's all I needed to hear. Family arrived through the afternoon. My sister Nancy with potato salad. My cousin Rick with 2 coolers. Kids running the yard with little flags. For a while it felt almost like the gatherings Margaret used to host. Almost. Then his wife started giving tours. The kitchen gets amazing morning light. We're thinking of opening this wall up after the paperwork's finished. After the paperwork, nobody corrected her, because nobody knew yet. At 1:30, a black sedan pulled in. Elaine, in a gray suit, slim leather portfolio in hand. His wife lit up. Oh, perfect. We're so glad you could make it. We can finally get the paperwork signed before dessert. Heads turned. Nothing exciting, she laughed to the confused faces. Dennis has decided it's time to transfer the house. She produced a box of new pens. I even bought these. I nodded to Elaine. She understood. His wife held out a pen. Whenever you're ready. We won't be needing your pen, I said. The backyard went strangely quiet. Even the kids seemed farther away. Elaine opened her portfolio. Since there's been some misunderstanding, Mr. Bennett asked me to clarify the ownership of this property. Confusion rippled through the guests. The home was transferred into an irrevocable trust shortly after Mrs. Bennett passed away, 4 years ago. Mr. Bennett no longer personally owns this house. The trust does. He retains lifetime occupancy. He cannot be forced to leave, and the property cannot simply be transferred because someone asks. She laid out the photographs one by one. Margaret's chair, tarped, hidden behind storage bins. The refrigerator, family photos pushed aside for a laminated rules sheet. Printed texts, one line highlighted. This place needs to stop feeling like your dad's house. Another. We need him to sign before he changes his mind. Another. Just somewhere smaller. Nobody laughed now. My sister covered her mouth. His wife recovered first. This is completely out of context. Elaine, unbothered, laid down the furniture invoices, the remodeling notes. Future office, primary bedroom expansion, open living space. All delivered to my address, all planned before any paperwork existed. My cousin looked from the pages to her. You already planned renovations. Harold spoke quietly into the silence. That chair belonged to Margaret. He wasn't talking about furniture anymore, and everyone knew it. My son finally lifted his head, looked at the photo of his mother's hidden chair, then at the garage, then at me. His face broke open. I knew, he said. Nobody moved. I knew she wanted the house. I kept telling myself it would never go that far. He looked straight at me for the first time in weeks. I was wrong. His wife grabbed his arm. Daniel! He pulled away, gently, steadier now. No. Dad deserves to hear this. I should have spoken up the first night, when she handed you those rules, when she moved Mom's chair. When they thought you were the handyman, I should have stopped it, and I didn't. His wife stared at him like she'd never seen him before. You're really doing this? Yes. Elaine quietly closed the folder. Her work was finished. Mine wasn't. I stepped forward, looked at the two of them, then at the dozens of people in my backyard. I appreciate everyone coming today, I said, but I think we all know this stopped being about hamburgers a while ago. A few nervous laughs faded fast. I turned to my son. When your mother was dying, she wasn't worried about the house or the money. She was worried you'd forget what kind of man she raised. His shoulders shook. I'm sorry, Dad. I know you are. I picked up the laminated sheet from the table, held it up. You know what bothered me most about this? It wasn't the breakfast, wasn't the bathrooms. It was that my own son stood there while someone handed his father instructions on how to live in the home his mother and I spent 34 years paying for. He covered his face. I know. No, I said gently. I don't think you do. Families don't fall apart in one terrible day. It happens one quiet compromise at a time. One apology you never make. One silence after another. His wife finally spoke, voice smaller than I'd ever heard it. I never wanted to hurt you. I thought if we were going to inherit the house someday anyway, making it work for us now just made sense. I nodded slowly. There it is. You weren't waiting for an inheritance. You were living inside one. My son stepped closer. I've got credit card debt. I never told you. I was embarrassed. I kept thinking one more promotion would fix it. Then she lost 2 clients. We started borrowing, then borrowing more. I convinced myself this was temporary. Every time I should have told her no, I didn't. I failed you. I know life can corner people, I said. I've worked double shifts. 8 peanut butter sandwiches for a week so your mother and I could make the mortgage. We never solved our problems by taking someone else's piece. He nodded through tears. No, you didn't. I went to the garage and came back with a faded red toolbox, the one I'd carried nearly 30 years as a union electrician. Pliers, wire strippers, the tape measure Margaret bought me for our 20th anniversary because I was always borrowing everyone else's. I handed it to my son. Dad, take it. I know, this toolbox built everything that mattered. My career, this house, the life your mother and I shared. I met his eyes. I'm not giving you a house. I'm giving you a chance. When you build something with your own hands again, come have dinner with me. He cried openly, quietly, the way a grown man does when he finally stops pretending. His wife looked at him, then at me. I don't deserve your kindness. No, I said. You don't. Another silence. But kindness isn't the same as surrender. Elaine smiled. Harold tipped his cap. You have 7 days, I told them. I'll help with the deposit on a small apartment. She looked stunned. Why would you do that? Because I want you to leave, not fail. The moving truck came the following Saturday. My son carried more boxes than anyone. Before leaving, he went to the garage and came back with Margaret's recliner, carried it without a word to the spot, by the front window where the afternoon light always reached it. He stood looking at it. I'm sorry, I know. 3 months later, another knock at my door. Just my son this time, a small toolbox in one hand, cleaned and organized. I fixed the loose porch light, he said. I noticed. He hesitated. Wondering if you wanted company for dinner. I stepped aside. Got enough meatloaf for 2. He laughed softly. Mom would have approved. She'd have told us both we were being stubborn. Definitely. We ate at the old oak table. Not much conversation. We didn't need much. 6 months after that, a handwritten letter came from his wife. No excuses, no blame, just an apology. She'd confused planning with control, efficiency with respect, helping with entitlement. I didn't rush to answer. Eventually I wrote back. I accepted it. Trust takes longer than forgiveness. That never changed. Neither did the trust, the legal one. The boundaries stayed exactly where I'd put them. These days, Margaret's recliner sits by the window again. The family photos are back where they belong. Every so often, my son comes by on a Saturday, and sometimes we fix things around the house, and sometimes we don't. Sometimes we just sit with coffee and watch the neighborhood go by. Growing older doesn't mean giving away your voice. It doesn't mean surrendering your dignity to keep the peace. Sometimes the kindest thing you can do for your family is show them where the line is, and stand there.